Welcome onto the podcast. It's a pleasure to have Sally here today with us. And so, just so everyone can know you better, Sally, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sally, and I am a licensed professional counselor. I have my own private practice. My education background was from UPenn. I have two master's degrees. One was Master of Science in Education and Master of Philosophy in Education. And my background was working in outpatient and for a couple of years. And then the last 2 years, I was working in public school, providing individual, family, and group counseling. Sorry, it's family and individual counseling in school. And so I have quite some experience working with teen and adolescents. Also, I combine a wide variety of different holistic modalities such as century therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, soul collage, some music, art, creative activities. And plus, myself is a singer, so I like to including some of those creative activity. Personally, I am a mother of a 1-year-old. And I have a husband, and so those they all keep me busy. And but overall, I enjoy my private practice so far. It has been 2 months that I have opened it, and I am applying more insurance credentialing to get more clients, hopefully, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. So in your line of work, what type of people do you primarily work with? What age group, what demographic?
Since I only do, my private practice, it's only open for 2 months. I have limited clients because I just started. And but in my previous work experience, my clients are mostly K-12 students. And the majority of problem is motivational issue, the lack of motivation, and the lack of resilience and consistency, and some teen romantic relationship problem, family conflict, because parents and kids, they have very different expectations in their career development, and also the grades, which cause a lot of tension in between of the family. Also, the remarriage could also increase a lot of stress in teenagers' life, and also schooling. Anxiety, depression are also very common issue that I encounter in the practice and at work. And a lot of kids are lack of coping skills, a lack of skills to deal with those stress, and also lack of direction to to learn about themselves, and also what kind of career they want to have. Some of that are also major issue. And in middle school age, I noticed the most the bully issue, the bully problems in middle school age kids, which could also cause a lot of stress and confusion, anxiety, and depression as well.
So it seems like most of the people you've worked with are, from the K-12 age, and it's like the issues that they're facing today. We just so much about, and we hear so much about it over, over the news, over the media. How serious is the problem? That, like, obviously when they come to you, the problem is quite serious already, right? But is this but a lot of these problems, is it like widespread? Is it like pretty much everyone is facing these problems? Because we keep hearing about resilience, lack of motivation. Everyone's on social media and depressed. Is there something like an epic, like from your perspective, what do you see?
It is a common issue. It's a common struggles in many families, definitely, and that's why we seeing a lot in counseling setting, and the major cause, major reason of this, I felt like um, lots of family they very occupied with their jobs and the lack of parenting supervision, and also parents the connection, the relationship between kids and the parents are a major issue too. um, Sometimes there is a misunderstanding in between because of the different expectation. Lots of parents, they expect their kids to thrive and excel in many ways, which is very common. But a lot of kids, they find that they're struggling to reach that direction, and meeting them at where they are is the key to help them. A lot of time the parents, they focus on the result. Hey, you need to get me all straight A's. Hey, you need to get to Ivy League school, and a lot of time parents are mainly focusing on the result and not the process. And my work is mostly really helping the parents to really recognize their kids when they make small progress, to give them help the parents to give more positive reinforcement, give them recognition and reassurance, affirmation when the kids making small little progress in between. It's a very important thing to give the kids um, more confidence and more motivation as well gradually. Also, I know another thing is I feel a lot of kids, um, they they may not go through much of a try and error thing, and so helping the kids and give them more opportunity to really expand their skills, such as if they're interested in music, help them to get into like some like music instrument or singing, whichever that they are interested in, and through that area help them to build confidence and self-esteem through that direction. Not only that, also in our daily life, when the kids do well and in one small area, and give them that recognition and tell them that, hey, you did a very good job, I'm so proud of you. Coming from an Asian family myself, and I noticed that among a lot of Asian family, parents are lack of the um, emotional expression. They are not really too good at expressing themselves, and so they tend to hold up like this um, those emotions and keep those emotions in, and sometimes it really it make it harder for the kids to connect with them. And if you're able to really let them know that it's okay to express those feelings by doing it yourself as a parent, you are also encourage them that to understand that it's okay to feel down, it's okay to feel discouraged sometime, and it's okay to feel sad. um, and that's another thing that really help those kids to connect with their own feelings by expressing your own emotion as a parent, and also help them to understand that small little step is they're all very important.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
so given that all your most of your work previously was done with the youth, but it sounds like from what you're saying, a lot of it is actually working with the parents as well, right? So how do you juggle?
Yeah.
Because in my line of work, I do career coaching and I do some leadership coaching for the youth, and what I find is like yeah, I'll have the youth in the room, and then I'll work with them, and then the parents are like outside doing their own thing, and then sometimes they don't know what's going on, and then they come in and you got to explain everything to them again. Like, how do you juggle that? How do you educate both the youth and the parent?
Yeah, that's also one of the biggest challenge in my work too, because our job mostly working with the students, the kids individually, most of the time. So what I do is I first of all start with the session with the student itself, the kids itself, teenager, and then I will spend majority of the session with them. Usually my session is about an hour, so I spend about 45 minutes with the kids, and then at the end of the maybe the last 15 minutes I will have the parents come in and we will adjust whatever that need to be adjusted, like if something that there's some misunderstanding or different issue in between their relationship, then we will adjust that. So in the meantime we touch base on that. But I do see like lots of kids that there are some kids afraid to involve their parents because of the
Yeah.
they're afraid that when they go home they will get yelled at, and the parents will like we know like, hey, we told such thing to our counselor consultant, and they're afraid that the parents will find out and got punishment. So that's also not one of the biggest obstacle in working with families, like trying to connect them, but in the meantime really protect the kids from um, from that struggles. It's a big challenge, definitely. Mm-hmm.
But from what it sounds like, based on what you said earlier, it almost sounds like, the problem, the kids that we see so much, like we hear about so much nowadays, a lot of it's actually from the parents. A lot of it's from the family. Like the parents, whether they're not expressing themselves or their expectations are unrealistic, whether they're giving them a lot of pressure, making them afraid to even try. I mean, it sounds like a lot of it's, from your perspective, sounds like a lot of it's on the parents.
Yes, that's a big part of that. However, there's also other from a bigger scope of their life. School also play a big role. The teen relationship, like I said, when bully happen, this also add on more stress and anxiety to the teen, and also like if that's a sibling issue, that could also add on more stress to their life.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost like the whole society, and whether it's education, whether it's social media, whether it's families are how families are constructed nowadays. These are like remarriages or like half sisters, half siblings. I mean, these are all making it quite stressful for the child.
Oh, it is. It is. With the media and also remarriage family, we live in a quite a challenging society, and helping the kids learn to adapt to all those changes is challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So how do you solve these problems? Like, how do you solve the problem of, for example, if a youth is, let's see, if a youth is bullied, for example, how do you really address bullying? Because it's half of it's on the bully, some of it's on the school,
Mm-hmm.
some of it's on the parent who never really equipped them with the tools or turn away from it. I mean, how do you deal with something like bullying?
Well, bullying it's a problem that I think need to work as a team with the school counselors, school principal, and teachers, as well as parents, and also the other supporter coming like me. In my previous job, I worked in school. It's a teamwork. It's a teamwork because, like you said, we also need to adjust the bullier and the other part of the bully, and it's important. So what we did was, I, as a outsider supporter, I report this to the school counselor and have them to adjust that in the school, and the teachers are also notified. So they have like the school mediation meeting with the bullier and also the kids that being bullied. They sit together, they have a mediation meeting, and sometimes that could also include the parents as well to address this issue. And what I do was another part of my job was to really help the kids understand like why they're bullied, why bullies happen.
Why are they singled out?
Yeah, and why they got targeted,
Right.
and what are the emotional damage and effect and physical effect, as well as like, and what are the different type of bully. There's cyber bully, there's physical bully, there's social bully, psychological bully. So there are different type of bully that kids could encounter nowadays with the media. So helping them to understand what bully is and what are the effects that could cause, and also help them to learn those assertive communication, which means I help them to learn to say no to people when they are not comfortable with, and tell them that I'm not such person like you say. Teaching them those social skills is also an important part of my job. And then help them to reframe those self-talk. A lot of time when those kids are being bullied, they build up those negative self-talk about themselves, which like, I'm a bad person, I deserve to be called such words, and helping them to reframe and restructure those negative self-talk is also a key work to help them recover. And also teach them, like I say, coping skills to learn to deal with those bullier in the future. And I see sometimes the kids actually traumatized from the bully. It did. Some of the kids that I work with, they were bullied in the middle age, and then they were traumatized because at that age they didn't understand. Their cognition level wasn't prepped enough for them to understand like that situation. Some of the bully are pretty ugly, such as they got like beat up by a group of girls. Like there's a girl that appeared to be, I mean, not attractive, and being humiliated in the bathroom, and with a group of other girls, and then they internalize those words, they personalize it, and it becomes a killing. Like it really hurt their self-esteem in the future down the road.
I mean, so here's a question that I've been wondering about. So a lot of bullying, like, I mean, bullying has been around since forever, right?
Yes,
Some
it
people
is.
say it's kind of like how people establish, like how groups of people establish hierarchies, right? Within whether when humans were still in the caves, or whether it's a way of establishing hierarchies. But in another sense, there's also outright bullying, and so how do you really differentiate as a counselor? How do you really differentiate when something is, it's not really bullying per se? Like it's like, because sometimes you hear bullying thrown around all the time, right? You make a snide remark, and it's like, oh, stop bullying, or it's like, what? It's like, you're only making like it's an offhand comment. I mean, how do you my point is, there seems to be almost an over-diagnosis of bullying. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's true. There are different level of bullying, and it's just like bipolar. People throw around, hey, you got bipolar because you have a little, you kind of throw out attention, temper tension, stuff like that. And I can recall when I was middle school age, people call me name and such, and but it wasn't bad enough totally damage my self-esteem. However, when it comes to bullying, it also depends on individual too, how resilient they are, and how much of how self-esteem, I mean, how confident they are. When this also those are important factor to determine like how much damage that could done to those kids when it comes to bullying. When someone say, hey, you are blah, 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 use those bad word to b word to describe someone, a girl, such as a girl, and if that girl is confident enough, and they may just shoved away and walked away. But for someone that's very inconfident and have low self-esteem, they take it personally. So it really depends on the individual.
Right. So it almost sounds like how whether bullying is framed as bullying depends whether the amount of damage that is done.
Exactly.
So if you
It
say that,
depends on how they interpret it.
and how they interpret it, right? And so if you say F you to one person, that person would be like, F you too, and then they walk away, right? If you say someone, you say F you to someone, they might, go in the washroom and cry. It's on the perspective of the perpetrator, it's the same thing. But it's almost sounds like bullying now is determined whether the amount of damage, like whether that person is resilient or not. And it sounds like
oh yes, it make a big difference.
Right? Yeah, but over general, resiliency is dropping. So how do you solve the problem of resiliency then?
Well, with resiliency, the biggest thing is I feel like their lack of recognition from others, a lack of positive reassure and reinforcement when they did something good. And also it's something I felt like throughout their previous life. I have a 1-year-old, and I could tell that her personality is already built up as a 1-year-old, and she's a very outgoing, very sociable, and she has good trust in others. And I always reflect and cultivate, like, what did I do to really help her to form such good confidence and trust in others, and a very proactive personality. And I realized it was really give her that consistent positive recognition when she did something good, such as when she put the toy away and put it into the bins and container that is supposed to contain that toy. And I always give her that positive thumbs up, and like, you did such a good job, thank you for helping. Give the kids that recognition and thank you. Even when you did something bad, say sorry. All those small things, it did add up to help them to build that self-esteem resilience throughout their life. So I would say for those kids that are lack of resilience and lack of self-confidence, self-esteem, has a lot to do with their past, that how much of recognition, how much of encouragement that they receive from significant caregiver and family.
But if they're, for example, if a kid is now 15 or 16, right, and that whole phase of that development is all over. I mean, how do you develop resiliency from this life stage?
We're gonna meet at where they at this point. So really explore their family contacts to see what their struggle is exactly, to understand their situation is the key. Also to raise their awareness and understanding about why they are who they are today, why they feel such way, and about others and themselves, and by giving them a lot of reassurance and giving them a lot of affirmation when they kind of like point toward that direction, the right direction. I mean, also encourage them, help them to express their feelings. It's also a very important thing. Sometimes when your feelings is trapped inside, they're disconnect with themselves, their inner self, and by helping them express themselves is really to build that connection first. I would say, as a counselor, I feel like the first 10 sessions is really to build that connection, that rapport with the with the kids, and to really be gentle and client center based to connect with the kids in a non-judgmental way. Sometimes when they're very sensitive to judgment with those kids, so we need to be very careful with that.
If you're a parent, for the parent listeners, I mean, and their kid is now 15 or 16, and they're dealing with resilience problem, it sounds like, is that something the parents should also do? Be a good listener. Don't come across as judgmental. More positive. I mean, but like it almost sounds like you're playing catch up, right? With that. So, what should parents do?
Oh, you mean what should the parents do for
Yeah,
those?
what should the parents do if their kids 15, 16 having resilience problems, anxiety, depression? And what can they do to strengthen the constitution of this youth?
I feel the key thing is to really review their connection, their relationship. To improve their relationship is the key. And how to improve the relationship? There's many ways, and also it's to have time together. Simple thing like watch a movie together. Like look, to be honest, like look back, like how much time you have for a whole family together. I felt like nowadays we're so distracted with with so many things. So we a lot of parents, they don't invest that much time with their kids. Or so simple thing, just spending time together, playing a game, watching a TV, a movie, and maybe going out for shopping together, and or maybe go grab a cup of coffee together and just chat and laugh about things and life. Simple thing like that to create and connect that good bond. It's the key for the next step about, hey, let's talk about your career. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of time the kids are very sensitive when it comes to like, hey, I don't want to talk about those things. But building that connection is the first, I would say. And then once that connection is stronger, the relationship is stronger, then we can gradually gear toward, hey, have more open question instead of a closed question, like, I think you should do this. So be very careful with words like you should, you must, and
shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Exactly. Those words, kids are very, very sensitive, and a lot of time when the parents say that, they just turn away. The kids just turn away. So be very careful with certain words to instead using more of the open questions, and to ask like, so what do you think about this? And a lot of time you can actually prompt like the question when you're watching a TV, someone, any scenario that kind of related to your kids' issue, you can have open question like, what do you think about that happen? And then gradually you'll be surprised, like it could really gear towards some really interesting conversation.
It's almost like because I feel like a lot of days, like nowadays, when you go out to the restaurant, right, you see a lot of parents. The way a lot of parents raise their kids today is, I have 3 kids, And one of the things
Yeah.
we try as much as possible, keep like cell phones like away as much as possible. Like it's because work just calls, right? But
It's hard.
but a lot of times when you're out in the at a restaurant eating, you see like four people, a family of four, just sitting there, and they each have their phone, and they're all each like look staring at
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Whatsoever, right? But like you said, the amount of time you invest, all that is time that's being spent on something else other than your kids.
Exactly. Yes, yeah. They need the parents' time and the family time together. That's very important. And and also with the family time together, you're teaching them how to social too, the way you interact with others. The kids, they watch, they learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they mimic the parents.
They do mimic. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I'm wondering. It seems like one of the struggles that a lot of parents have, especially during the tweens, like when they go from nine to 13 age, at that stage, they're still very like okay, like they'll listen. The brain developmentally, they're still they're not at the point where they're like okay, let's try to create my own ideas, try to like assert myself as a like individual, right? A lot of
Mhm.
parents seem to struggle with that jump from that age, like
To
middle
an
school,
adult.
high school, right? When they should be in full on parent mode to turn into kind of like a parent coach, coach
Hmm.
or counseling mode, right? Ask open ended questions. That
Yes,
seems to be a major struggle. Is that
it
your
is. It is. Oh yeah, it is. A lot of parents, because then they never learn about psychology. They never learn about what motivational interview skills is. All those are very important. I feel like some parents, they could really equip with those skills by learning more, like such as motivational interview skills, and also um, just just be present, and like you say, authentic, be present, and be real with their feeling. It's a learning experience for the kids.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What are some, so for the listeners then, what would be some examples of motivational question interview techniques?
For example, like I said, having more open question, and um opening question, like start with what, how, why, and such a, and instead of using like um, um, do such, and that uh, that will really help to have more contacts coming out of the kids answer, and also just meet them at where they are at the moment. Like if you also, parents need to be very like be mindful about the kids' mood at the moment. Sometimes when kids are not in the mood and you kind of ask them question, of course they're not going to tell you anything. So
Right.
I mean, parents are. And most parents hopefully are sensitive enough to recognize those mood, but those are very important too. Um, us, I mean, the parents can learn more about those on YouTube, and also books. There are lots of tours out there about motivational interview. They can learn more about that, and they may not need to buy a book on that. Lots on YouTube have a lot of basic skills of motivational interview. They can learn more and can practice on those too.
Hmm.
And surprisingly, if they apply it does work.
Right. It's magical almost, right? Like when you don't put the kid in a box, it's almost like, oh wow, the world opens up for them.
Yeah, and also parents' expectation too.
Mm.
Sometimes, um, in a lot of, I would say, like lots of Asian family, they have very different expectation between the first and second generations,
Mm.
and that create a lot of tension. So sometimes really explore, as parents, explore what the kids really want and really hear from them, having that active listening to understand your kids, what they want and what kind of career path they want, like what draw them interest, what do they like before, what they liked in the past, and is there something that they may be interested in learning more or explore, and kind of help them gear toward that.
For a lot of young people nowadays, I mean, in my line of work, when we do career coaching, we realize a lot of young people, like, you know, some of them might even be like 30 and they have no idea what they want to do with their lives, right? Of course, and
It's true.
you ask a 14-year-old, what do you want to do? I still got some time to figure it out. You talk to a 17-year-old and college apps are right around the corner. They're like, I better hurry up and figure it out. And then they go into like college undeclared major, and then they just jump around, and eventually they start questioning themselves, and then they drop out or just feel anxious, depressed. They get a degree that they don't want. They spend, X amount of dollars, just getting. I mean, that seems to be a major recurring theme that I see in my work. What would be some things that you would recommend for parents or youths to, figure out that direction? Like, what were some things that you would recommend for them to do?
I think kids at that age, they the lack of understanding what they want to do, it's a very normal stage because they are still at the age.
Right?
Yes, they're still exploring what they want, and the only way to help them understand what they want, what they like to do, and what really structure who they are, is going through experience, trial and error, really trying. Okay, maybe have a part-time job while they're in school. Maybe try it out, see if you like it, and go from there. And a lot of time, a lot of time I feel like people may not really understand what they really want until a later age in life. It's a very common issue, and people change their job and career path at a different stage of life as well. So it's common. I won't say that it's not uncommon.
Right. And it's not like it's even a problem because people always, values change.
Yeah, exactly.
Interests come up and so on. So like, it's not really a problem, but I mean, there's also, natural orientations. So like some people are naturally oriented towards people, right? People over things, data over ideas. These are some common educational assessments that we use for career coaching and career counseling. I mean, these things stay relatively consistent throughout the life, right? And so, I mean, it's like you said, it's not exactly a problem, and it's quite a common.
But it's a problem to a lot of parents, I would say.
It's a problem for a lot of parents, right? Especially if they're throwing money.
Yes.
They're throwing.
Yes, it is. Well, it is a problem. I mean, when it comes to making that bigger investment, and also, I would say compared to other country in the United States, making career change after they got a degree, it's very challenging compared to other country. I have some friends in China, and they got a degree maybe in English, and then they become like working in a bank and as a banker. So making a career change and shift in other country is a lot easier. But in the United States, they require you to have such degree experience. So making it a lot harder to make a career switch in the United States. And that's also why it's a problem to lots of family.
I mean, because the whole certification system where you have industry looking off their own industry so that other people don't step into it to protect it. I mean, that makes it really rigid, and people to be fluid and like move between them. Here's one thing that was interesting. I mean, since we both went to Penn, and while you were there and you're in counseling, right? I mean, there's almost like there's not almost, there is a suicide epidemic in Ivy League.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it, like, me going to Oxford, I experienced like, imposter syndrome. And I'm sure a lot of
Mhm.
people going to Penn experience imposter syndrome, right? I mean,
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
goes back to the whole resilience thing. And I mean, what would you say, what would be a good way to deal with that? Because a lot of
Mhm.
people, they strive for elite schools, some of them are successful and get in, but then they have that, you know, mindset where it's like, I
Good.
got to live up to this, right? And I mean, it's tough. I mean, what are your thoughts on
It is. Um, Again, I felt like the majority of the stress coming from family too.
that?
Yeah, the parents expect the kids to thrive to get a straight A in a Ivy League school, and it's very competitive in Ivy League school. Everyone are very smart and they work hard, so the competition is huge. And in the same time, the professors, they're not as available as much compared to a small
No, they're
co-
not available very much. No.
a small college. So they are limited to that kind of resource when they encounter like difficulty in academic or personal life. They're limited to access to those professors for help. Um, and Also in grad school, I was in grad school, so people come and go, and it's making it a lot harder to make friends
Mhm.
because most of them are competitive. They are kind of like, just a lot of them just say hi and have very minimum of conversation in a daily base, which make it a lot harder to connect with your colleague. And um, so that play a big role, I would say, in an Ivy League school. Yes, Ivy League school has a very good ranking and have a lot of good resource in terms of academic research, and studies. And they maybe receive a lot of top um, top studies and research, and funding for the students to study. However, um, the lack of support is the biggest. The lack of emotional
Yeah.
support is a huge problem in Ivy League school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even at Penn, I don't know if you got the news. I mean, the head of counseling just left. Well, he committed suicide recently, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I mean, that environment is just really crazy. And I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
I think back to George Kelly's construct theory, like how a lot of people, they bank their identity on one thing. So
Yeah,
I believe
it
students
is.
bank it on one thing, and whenever that gets shook, like they don't do well in school, they don't get that. If they were an A student their whole life, and then suddenly they become like, oh, sorry, you got a C plus, because especially if you're international school, like international student, like your English simply is not at the native level, and then
Mm-hmm.
a C plus, not
Mm-hmm.
because you can't think that at that level, you just,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
and then like
Mm-hmm.
your whole identity gets shaken, and then if you
Mm-hmm.
inspire things like I don't know, coming from an Asian perspective, right? We mentioned that several times. It's like a lot of parents send their kids to, okay, let's do piano, let's do music, let's do art, and just like send them to keep taking classes, but they don't have that time to explore jobs, work,
Mhm, exactly.
and develop that
Mhm,
resiliency and realize they're a little more than just their studies.
mhm, mhm.
When that
Yes,
shook, then their whole identity gets shaken. And what do you think about
yes, it's true. Yeah, it's that it's such a, you pointed something that I want to talk on as well. What I encounter a lot like that in my counseling with Asian students I work with,
that?
and you're right. Lots of Asian parents, they send lots of kids to all kinds of um, activities, they piano, and there's a different level that they need to get certified, and because that could help them to get into a higher, better, I mean, I believe better school. So a lot of Asian kids, they're under tons of stress, not only the school, but also like personal life. When they get home, they need to practice piano, violin for such time, taking classes. Not only violin, piano, they also need to do like tennis, to play tennis, to
Yeah.
and so they have so many extracurriculum that take up so much of their time after school. So lots of kids, they barely have time to do their homework, and they barely have time for family because they're all over the places. So I would say that is a very that's a very unhealthy way to for those kids. And a lot of kids came into me with high anxiety and stress, and telling me so much that they have difficulty to do with so many activity, and they don't have time to keep up their grades. So when they are given so much tasks after school, um, they don't have time to do well in this school academic. And parents, Asian family, expect them to excel in all of those areas.
Right.
Yes, and we are human. I feel like a lot of Asian parents expect their kids to be a Superman, Superwoman, just to deal with all of that without understanding their struggles and emotional pain. Um, that's also causing the disconnection.
But how do you
Mm-hmm.
tell an Asian parent this? I mean, like, this is, they threw so much money at it, and that's the way they've been raised, and that's like, and
Mm-hmm.
like,
Exactly.
I'm a parent, right? And the parents I hang around with in this neighborhood, in particular, there's a lot of Chinese parents here, and everyone sends their kids to like 10 different things throughout the week. And you talk to
Yes.
them, it's like, if I don't keep up, my kid's gonna fall behind. I mean, what do you tell these parents? But what would you tell, because you talk to these parents, right? What do you tell?
Yes, I do. I communicate with the parents. I would say the parents are the hardest people to work with. They are. I found it's a lot easier to work with the kids. The kids are, because they're at the age they they're not as fixated as the parents. That, like, kids are the one that actually, there's hope for them to change, to understand and reframe those concepts. Like you said, a lot of parents, they are raised that way in China, in Asian countries, so they never understand, like there are other ways of raising their kids, because that's how they were raised. So they're not exposed to the other parenting style. A lot of the Asian parents, they mostly authoritarian parenting style, and it caused a lot of stress and tension. So how I like I said, it's very difficult to talk with the parents. However, I always start with like, hey, I know you're doing all this for your kids. You're trying to help your kids do excel, but I have to admit that and let you know that your kids is going through a lot of stress, and that stress is actually causing um, more obstacle in their success, because when anxiety raised to an extreme level, it actually impact their performance in testing, schooling, and performing. So I explained to them, that the parents, that to help the kids to balance activity instead of making them go through all of that, but really monitor their anxiety level, and really communicate with the kids about their emotional stress on a daily basis, and um, things like that. But a lot of time, whether the parents do that is another case. A lot of time, the kids come back, and I ask them, like, do your parents talk to you differently? Like, do they communicate about your feelings? Most of the time, the kids say no. So
Oh,
the parents, even though I explain to them those way, but they they didn't they didn't change.
We're all creatures of habit, right? Sometimes you're
It is.
like a
Hmm.
way of doing something that it's hard to change, and the parents
Changes is a lot.
expect the kids to you, and they expect you to fix the kid, but
Yep.
problems sometimes on
It's
the
the reverse. It's
yeah
on them. Yes, yes.
yeah
So my biggest job is really helping the kids to understand their situation primarily, and to really help them understand why their parents couldn't be the one that the kids want to have. A lot of kids, they come in and say, I feel you're more like my mother, the mother I want to have. I'm like, oh, well, thank you for saying that, but I'm like, well, why your mother can be such way. And it a lot of kids, they have a very sad family, and um it is very very difficult for them, but
Mm.
I help them to understand, like, you can be a better person. They can change that uh, dynamic, that family structure in their future life, even though they can't change their parents at this point. But by understanding um, their parents, why they are why they are being this way, like you say, because they came from the same family, they were taught that same way, and they never learned a different way uh, to teach the kids. So it's sad. I help the kids understand that their parents are very unfortunate. They're more unfortunate because they never know their problem, but you do know, and that's why you come to me, and we learn about the family situation, the family problems, and you learn what's the better way um, to live a life. What life could be a very different when you learn more about yourself, and also exposed to a different kind of life. Lots of kids come in, they don't know, like, hey, there's another healthy family dynamic.
Mhm.
So helping them to raise that awareness and restructure the mindset about a different type of family, it's very important, and give them hope for the
Mhm.
future.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I want to be respectful of your time. I mean, I think it's great. It's great things that you've said about about the parents, about how young people could raise that self awareness so that they develop
Yes,
resilience. It's a skill set. It's really a soft skill set for you to
it
navigate
is.
the world, right? So
Mhm.
I want to respect your time. So for the listeners, like, how can we contact you, or where can we learn more about you and your practice?
Uh, you The listener can go to the Psychology Today. My name is Chuhua Sally Wang, so you can look up more of my information, and my
How do you
contact is
spell
on
Chuhua?
CHUHUA Wang, WANG. Well, you when they look up Sally Wang, they should be able to locate me on Psychology Today.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
you got a website or phone number, or
Oh yeah, it's all on that.
it's all
Mm-hmm.
on that. Okay, so it's all there, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
just go on
Mm-hmm.
Psychology Today, look up Sally Wang, Chu Hua Sally Wang, and they'll find you.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yep,
right.
there was. Mm-hmm.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, John.
Thanks
Yep,
for
have
your
a
time,
great day.
and have a great day.